Greetings, all you tear-ons out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch, Season 2. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hello.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 2, Episode 23, Crossover. Alternate title, The Land of No Light Bulbs.
Okay. The only thing I could think of was Black Mirror, DS9.
Ooh. I'm trying to make the Black Mirror.
I've never actually watched Black Mirror, so yeah, I have no idea what you're doing.
Okay. A quick note on spoilers, in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, but only an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series. Nothing too big, like when Bashir gets his own spin-off, where he moves to Seattle to be a radio talk show host.
Nice. Okay.
That was great. The Emmy-winning Bashir series.
I saw a meme today with with Kelsey Grammer from his appearance in The Next Generation, but he's like supposedly captaining the like LeCool or whatever from Star Trek Generations.
Uh-huh.
And Niles is in command of like the Enterprise B, and so he's just like, Niles, will you please just like use your tractor beam? And it's like, hold on, I gotta go back and look it up, because it was just such a good exchange that I'm not gonna do it justice if I don't.
Sure.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
I'm not gonna find. I found one that was very similar, except it begins with the one where the other one ends, where like Niles has to admit that he left Space Dock without a tractor beam, and Fraser's like, for God's sake, Niles, who leaves Space Dock without a tractor beam?
He's in a new movie in the theater, apparently, because I saw when I was looking at the movie listings yesterday. It's like something about Jesus. I don't know if he plays Jesus or what.
Which one? Wait, is David Hyde Pierce still alive? They're both still alive, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, Fraser.
Okay.
Whatever that guy's name is.
Kelsey Grammer.
Right. Oh, let me look at this thing you just sent me.
Yeah. Eventually I did find it, but I felt like the moment had passed. So like, I'll just pop it in there. You can look at it if you want, but we'll move on.
Nice. I'll put a link to that or something.
So anyway, sorry. That was a really random distraction, but you started in on the Frasier thing, so I had to...
Right. Frasier Crane's Day Off was this week's episode of Frasier.
What was this week's Next Generation?
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, hold on, I got it. This was May 15th. May 16th's Next Generation was Preemptive Strike, where Lieutenant Rowe goes undercover to root out a Maquis cell. So they've already picked up the ball from the Maquis stuff that we were doing.
Right. We got to keep that Maquis action going.
Yeah.
And this week's Simpsons was Lady Bouvier's lover.
It's just going to be like the entire show at some point is going to be what other episodes of other shows were at the same time.
Not my favorite Simpsons, but decent. I mean, they're all good, like around that era. So
right.
That's the one that famously ends with the Sound of Grandpa song.
Sure.
It's like, hello, Grandpa, my old friend.
A classic sound, yeah.
Anyway. Yes, this episode originally aired of Deep Space Nine, May 15th, 1994. It was written by Peter Allen Fields and Michael Piller, story by Peter Allen Fields, and directed by good old David Livingston.
Yep.
So, recapping this episode. We start with a scene that should be played at every corporate sexual harassment training class in the country. Dr. Bashir and Major Kira are returning home from, I guess, a hospital opening or dedication or something in the New Bajor colony in the Gamma Quadrant. Bashir makes awkward conversation and subtly gauges his chances of getting into bed with Kira. The chances are not good, and Kira is annoyed.
Oh yeah, but then Kira's like, I think you should focus on Dax. And he's like, what? Oh, I wasn't, backtrack.
Right. Oh, you thought I was, that old trick.
Bashir's, even without, like, hitting on her, she's just so annoying. We're, like, reverting to season 1 Bashir, where she's like, hey, I'm gonna take a minute to, meditate. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna just talk to you continuously while you're meditating. I'm sure that won't bother you at all.
It's like, what's that? You come from a religion that meditates? Well, I know something about meditating. Let me instruct you all about it.
It's like, pick up on some sort of social cues, Doctor.
Yeah. I was thinking, when was that time when they were like flying together and then Bashir had just brought a guy back to life or something? And she was like, wow, I'm so proud to know you. He was like, I know.
I don't remember that.
Anyway, as they drop out of warp to enter the wormhole, the runabout shakes from a plasma injector leak or something. They zoom into the wormhole where there is a weird flash of light. Once they get back to the Alpha Quadrant side, they find that the station is no longer at the wormhole, but is back orbiting Bajor. Suddenly they are intercepted and boarded by some Klingons. But as soon as the Klingons see Kira, they become afraid and back away. They're like, I'm sorry, ma'am. Didn't know it was you. And Kira's like, wow, I guess my reputation really precedes me.
Also, they're like, you just appeared out of nowhere. And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So apparently they weren't paying attention to like the giant wormhole thing that opened. They were just like, oh yeah, you just showed up. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know a wormhole was there, that might not be your first explanation. I don't know.
I mean, the giant thing opens and like they come out of the mouth of it.
Right.
You would have to not know what a wormhole is, even conceptually, or else like, I mean, and even if you didn't, it's not like you just appeared out of nowhere. It was like, there's this giant spatial disturbance and then you were here. There's a difference between those things.
I mean, this is the Star Trek universe where there's all kinds of spatial disturbances like that, so... but once they arrive back at the station, they are surprised to be greeted by Garrick, wearing a Cardassian military uniform. But things get even weirder when around the corner walks another Kira, wearing sexy leather and a tiara, and doing the Catwoman walk.
Yeah, see, so apparently it says after this episode aired, there was a lot of discussion about like how sexy Nana Visitor was as the intended.
Mm-hmm.
With the costume she wore garnering a great deal of attention. And so, according to costume designer Robert Blackman, the consensus among fans was that it was the revealing costume that gave her level of seductiveness. But Blackman is like, I mean, it doesn't really expose more of her body than her normal costume.
True.
He says the real difference is like how she wears it and like the way that she walks, the way that she like uses different body language than she usually does.
Right.
And so I like him that he's the costume designer, but he's like, no, it was all like she's the one who really
right
did it.
Although I'll say that like, what color even is her uniform? Like peach?
What, normally?
Yeah.
I think of it like a maroon.
Oh, it's not as deep as a maroon.
What color is Kira's uniform? Let's see if there's not unicorn. Why would that be the first thing that pops up? Burgundy is what it calls it.
Okay. I don't think of it as being deep as burgundy either, but I'll take it.
I mean, the arms are like darker than the main part, so I don't know.
I don't know why it never registered with me what color that uniform is supposed to be. Anyway, Garrick explains that they are on Terok Nor, center of Alliance authority for the Bajoran sector. Kira, henceforth called regular Kira, suggests that they took a wrong turn in the wormhole, but Garrick doesn't know what she's talking about, and also nobody asks any follow-up questions about this wormhole they keep mentioning.
Nah, what do they care about wormholes?
Yeah, wormhole, that doesn't sound important.
Nah.
Well, obviously we're in the wrong place, so we're just gonna hop back on our ship and... Oh no! You stay here, says sexy evil Kira, who orders Bashir put to work while she goes off to have a chat with regular Kira. While walking through the station, regular Kira sees humans, now called Terrans, or Terrans, if you're one particular person, doing hard labor and wearing patches that look like Earth. In fact, a Klingon drags a human, or Terran, in front of Kira, sexy evil Kira, whom he addresses as Intendant, and says that he caught this one trying to escape. And Kira is just Intendant, not Superintendent, or
right.
She's not that good. She's
regular intends, not any higher level.
Garrick wants to kill the attempted escaping Terran as an example, but evil Kira is like, you always want to kill people. Give it a rest.
So I had to look this up. Historically, The title of intendant was given to a high-ranking official or administrator, especially in France, Spain, Portugal, or one of their colonies. However, the modern usage is the administrator of an opera house or theater.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's what Terrac Nor really is now. It's an opera house.
Yeah, it's an opera house, exactly. We didn't stay long enough to see an opera,
right?
But
we didn't go into the whole purpose of the station. I mean, they have the human slaves there, like processing ore to service the opera house aspect of it. But yeah. So yeah, Bashir is dragged off to the slave area where he meets evil Odo and alternate but not evil O'Brien. Odo is quite incredulous at Bashir's claims to be a doctor.
And by incredulous, you mean like slaps him around a little bit.
Right, and just, violent for no reason. Regular Kira follows evil Kira to the commander's office, or I guess the intendant's office.
I mean, but I have to wonder, actually, how different this Odo is than the Odo that we know. Because we've established that he kind of would rather things were run a little bit tighter. So, like, if he was given the authority to be like, you're not allowed to make jokes or I'll slap you, like, he might go for it.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, our Odo is just extremely hemmed in by, like, the social mores of his, time and place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable saying our Odo might not be that far off from evil Odo, or might even just be exactly the same. Anyway, regular Kira follows evil Kira to the commander's office. Evil Kira is like, hey, did you ever see that episode of TOS, Mirror Mirror? No, says regular Kira.
Like, Kira has no idea who Kirk even is.
Right.
And she's like, oh, Kirk is really famous here. Which is kind of weird because the way she describes it, Kirk wasn't all that important, like, overall. Especially not to, like, the Alliance. So I'm like, why is he one of the most famous people ever?
Just because this seems to be a really famous story. Like, much more famous and well-known than in the regular universe.
Yeah.
And it seems to have had several repercussions that apparently just are universe-wide in the Mirror Universe. But Kira's like, no, I never heard of that. And then evil Kira's like, well, that's where you are. Then she goes off to explain that...
Let me explain it to you for anyone in the audience who also didn't see that episode.
So yeah, she explains it. Then she explains that after that episode, Goatee Spock took over the Terran Empire, I guess, and made it good, but also made it weak. Because then the Klingons and the Cardassians teamed up and took it over and enslaved all the Terrans. Then they also freed Bajor from the tyranny of Terran rule, I guess.
Yep.
And then let the Bajorans join their alliance. And also she delivers this whole thing while standing in front of a really weird statue.
It is a weird statue. But I have to say that I will give the Alliance one thing, that they seem pretty egalitarian in that, like, Kira's like a Bajoran who joined, like, their society joins this alliance later, but they have no problem with her being in charge of, like, this station and stuff. Like, she's a pretty important person. True. I feel like the Klingons and Cardassians that we know, both of them have a tendency to be like, our race is, like, so much cooler than other races.
True.
So they've really, they've grown.
Although I'm really suspicious of this alliance logo, which is like a big giant Cardassian, like, eagle with a little tiny, like, Klingon logo in its talons.
Yeah, true.
It's like, did the Klingons not object to the symbolism of this logo? Because it seems to paint a picture. But I guess everybody's happy, so. Also, apparently, after Mirror Mirror, it was decided that if anybody ever comes over from the regular universe, they would just kill them. And I guess this is just a universe-wide policy.
Yeah. Once again, it's like, this was an incident that occurred for, like, a day in the Terran Empire. And then after that, she says it happened right after that, except that doesn't make any sense because apparently Spock took over from there and made the Empire peaceful or whatever. So I don't think he would have passed that law. And so it was only after, like, the Klingons and Cardassians took advantage of the ramifications of the incident that I guess it got outlawed or whatever.
I guess, like, maybe the logic is somebody came over from the regular universe, corrupted that, like, empire with such a dangerous, like, weakling ideology that it, like, tore them to pieces. So they're like, well, we don't need this happening to us ever again. So if anybody comes over from that universe, just kill them. Because they have these dangerous ideas of peace and freedom and stuff.
Yeah, those guys are crazy.
But even though she's supposed to kill regular Kira, evil sexy Kira is a super narcissist and doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely the narcissism is, but I get I feel like there's an undercurrent here of she wants to sleep with herself.
Yeah, I think that's, there's definitely some of that in the subtext. Yeah. There's something uncomfortable going on in that subtext, at the very least. Anyway, regular Kira goes down to Slaveland and has a chat with Bashir while Odo just kind of awkwardly looks on in the background. Have you ever heard of James Kirk, says Kira. Oh, of course, mirror, mirror, that's where we are, says Bashir.
Yep, he's on top of it.
Which, like, is that the thing Kirk is most famous for? Not like, it's like, isn't he the guy who went back in time and saved the whales?
Well, I assume that it's not what he's most famous for, but it is the story about Kirk that fits the situation there.
Sure. And just, Bashir just, really remembers that story from the Academy or whatever.
Well, he's good at remembering stuff.
True. And also there's this weird moment where Kira's like, I haven't found Dax or Cisco. But she doesn't mention O'Brien. And then Bashir's like, oh, O'Brien's over here tinkering with the machines. Which, like, did Kira just forget about O'Brien, or does she not care about O'Brien? Or
a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Did she just read the script and know that Bashir was about to report on O'Brien?
That's more likely.
And nobody asks after, like, Nog.
No. Why would you?
It's like, I don't know where this universe's version of Nog is. But yeah, so they decide to see if the alternate Chief O'Brien knows anything about transporters and can rig up a transporter that would take them back to the regular universe, which, that's a pretty big ask.
Right? Yeah, no, that's just common knowledge. Everyone knows how to, transport to the other universe, obviously.
Just nobody ever thought to do it before.
Yeah. It's
like, I don't even know if, like, the awesome Chief O'Brien would know how to do that, but
I kind of doubt that he would.
Yeah. So next, Kira visits Quark's, and Kira tries to butter up Quark by pretending to be his best friend, even though a few episodes ago she was like, I despise you. But anyway, asks if he can get access to a transporter. Quark hints that he may be able to do it if it can be used to send others to the other side. But that conversation is cut short as Garrett comes in and arrests Quark.
Yep.
It seems that the Terran who escaped earlier spilled the beans that Quark is running some kind of underground railroad. Then we have this hilarious scene where Quark tries to pull a gun on Garrick, but sucks super bad and is instantly disarmed and dragged away. And then just as he's leaving, alternate Cisco and a crew of Terrans come in and start stealing all of Quark's booze.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to need it.
True. Back in Slaveland, Bashir tells alternate O'Brien about his life on the other side. Which, I have to bring this up. Because this is my complaint about so many, like, alternate universe stories. Which is that in real life, there's no way any of these characters would exist in this universe.
Yeah, I was gonna at some point bring up the same thing. It's like, you have to make a huge, like, just suspension of disbelief to believe that any single person would have been born in a society with such a different history than the one that they come from.
That goes all the way back, like, 100 years or more.
Yeah, exactly.
And but what really disturbs me, or not disturbs me, but it's like, okay, so we have O'Brien, we have Kira, we have Cisco, everybody's here. But there's no Molly O'Brien?
Right.
So it's like, that's where they draw the line.
Yeah, that's where this generation is where the timeline finally shifts. Because,
right.
We don't see a Jake Sisko showing up. We don't see a Keiko O'Brien showing up.
Right.
This is where things separate.
Yeah, this is where the butterfly effect starts finally happening.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Bashir pitches the transporter idea, but O'Brien just is not buying it and becomes upset and refuses. Then he's called to the bar where morally gray Cisco is explaining to regular Kira how evil Kira keeps him around as a pet and apparently also a pirate.
Yeah.
Cisco calls O'Brien Smiley, which O'Brien does not like, and then sends him off to go fix his ship, which is a weird nickname because he doesn't do a lot of smiling. Maybe that's the joke.
Well, I think it was because his name is Miles.
Sure.
Cisco doesn't like Miles, so he takes the S and moves it to the other side. And
then adds a Y.
Yeah.
Yeah. Typical nickname format, I guess. So then Cisco gets a call from evil Kira to meet in her quarters, which puts a brief, terrified look on his face. But he shakes it off and goes on his merry way. Later, Kira joins them, and after whatever horrible thing they've just done, we don't want to know, and finds evil Kira getting bathed by Vulcans while Cisco sucks on a knife. Cisco takes this excuse to run off and check on his ship, and evil Kira asks regular Kira about her transporter plot, which I guess Miles narked, or no, I guess Quark narked.
Yeah, she says Quark,
yeah.
Quark mentioned something about it during his interrogation.
But she stops that idea dead in the water by explaining that all transporters in the universe were fixed, so that can't happen anymore. Again, just like the whole universe got together and made this policy. Yep. Then they're interrupted by Garrick. Garrick just loves, interrupting scenes. Who drags Quark in and confirms that they have cracked the case of the Terran escapees. Evil Kira orders Quark to be put to a quick death. And then when he's dragged off, quickly changes the subject to a party she's planning on throwing. Which disturbs regular Kira.
Yeah.
So, regular Kira goes to her quarters, where Garrick is waiting for her, and he sees her dress, which he's like, I do admire a well-tailored dress, as if, his personality from the regular universe is, bleeding over or something.
Well, no, it's just, Garrick intrinsically has a penchant for tailoring.
That's just, really core in his, the DNA
yes,
of his
exactly.
personality. Okay. So Garrick comes up with this plan. He proposes that he will kill evil Kira, or that evil Kira will just go away.
Yeah, he's not specific. He's like, you don't really want to know the details, but she's not going to be here, is the upshot.
So he proposes that regular Kira take her place for a few weeks, then retire from her intendant job so that Garrick can take her place as the leader of the opera. And, as a sweetener, if she doesn't play along, Bashir will be killed.
Yep.
By Odo.
Well, we don't know how until later, when Odo's like, man, it sure is a shame. Tonight's your last night.
Yeah, well, I mean, he says, I've made arrangements with his overseer or whatever, which I think is assumed to be Odo. But yeah, so regular Kira's like, okay, well, this is just too much. And she runs down to Slaveland to tell Bashir that they need to leave ASAP. Odo looks on with a big smile on his face. I guess because he plans on killing Bashir later or something.
Can't wait to get to killing that guy.
Yeah.
I take pleasure in gutting you, boy.
He's into it. Yeah. Regular Kira goes to Cisco and offers information about the Garrick plot in exchange for helping her get back to her ship. But Cisco's just like, nah, shit like that happens all the time around here. It's no biggie.
Garrick tries to kill her, all the time.
Which he says it really weird, I wouldn't worry about it, he has, some knowledge about how this is going to play out, but apparently he just knows, this kind of stuff always happens and it always works out, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we never see what Garrick was planning, so I almost think that, Garrick is just full of shit, and...
Yeah. Trust me, this guy sucks and is stupid. It's not a big problem. And then, this is also the point where Cisco says the word Terrans 5 times. Which is, I think he mispronounces words on purpose, Avery Brooks. I think he just gets a perverse pleasure in doing it. Calling the legate the legate and stuff like that. He also says that Terrans don't have souls. We don't believe in them. And then Kira tries giving him a little speech, but he's just in no mood to be a hero. So she just ends her speech by reminding him that he's still pretty much just as much a slave as everyone else. Except maybe even worse, because he has to do unspeakable stuff in evil Kira's private quarters.
It's true.
I mean, we don't know what he has to do. He just might not like having to, have sex with her or whatever. But it's just like that horrified look he gets on his face that first time she calls him. It paints a scary picture.
Yeah. But everybody else in the room is like, you dog. Yeah, you go and do that stuff.
You're going to get some. So anyway, regular Kira goes to evil Kira's party, where they are wearing the same dress. Of course.
Of course.
Down in Slave Land, Bashir is getting taunted by evil Odo, who's just like, ha, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you later. Ha, you just wait, I'm going to kill you. Then suddenly a thorium leak breaks out, or something.
Well, because O'Brien had warned them earlier in the episode that, like,
you
got to replace this thing or else there's going to be, like, an accident. And then I assume, it's not explicit, but later on, he's working on something when he gets called away by Cisco. And then he tells Cisco, it's like, no, there's this really urgent thing that I have to work on in ore processing or else, like, bad stuff's going to happen. And so I can't, like, go fix your ship. And Cisco's like, I don't give a fuck what's going to happen in ore processing. I want my ship fixed. And so
true.
Okay. So, like, there's, like, a background story about this thorium issue that is going through the whole thing.
So they're finally getting their comeuppance for constantly ignoring O'Brien.
Yep.
Bashir surprisingly proves useful and takes advantage of the chaos, grabbing a phaser and shooting Odo, which results in the greatest special effect ever seen on TV. Bashir escapes into the plasma conduits where he runs into alternate O'Brien. Bashir asks for directions, but O'Brien refuses to help. Fortunately, Bashir is so inept at knowing where to go that O'Brien helps him out of annoyance. Or maybe it's because of the, like, inspiring speech he gives him or something, I don't know.
Well, he explains later why he did it, so...
Oh, yeah, true. O'Brien says he'll help if they take him along, which bafflingly Bashir hesitates about. He's like, oh, I don't know. Can I take you home? Can we do that?
It's like, Starfleet's not going to like it, but screw those guys.
It's like, really? Starfleet's not going to like it? If you, like, rescue this slave? Whatever. Anyway, unfortunately, they are immediately caught by Klingons who drag them to evil Kira's party. Kira is upset about Odo being killed, since he was such a brutal and effective slave master. He'll never be replaced. She instructs Garrick to give Bashir a very painful execution. Then she asks O'Brien what he was thinking, and this is where he was like, well, I was thinking, this place sucks, and the other universe sounds like it doesn't suck, so I thought I might try to go check that out. But evil Kira is like, okay, fine, you can go with him. To be executed. But apparently at this point, alternate Cisco has had enough. He and his crew pull their guns and run off with Bashir, Alt O'Brien, and good Kira. And he has the great line when she's like, have you lost your mind? And he's like, I didn't lose it. I just changed it. They take Bashir and good Kira to the runabout. Alt O'Brien joins Alt Cisco's crew, and it's implied that they plan to go off and stir up some rebellion. Or, as what would Captain Reynolds say, they aim to misbehave.
Yep.
Or something like that.
That sounds right.
So they get back on the runabout. Kira's just like, I guess let's just fly back through the wormhole with the leaky plasma thingy again. Yeah. And fortunately, that works.
Right.
And after a brief skirmish with the Klingon battlecruiser, they find themselves back home in the good universe. And then also somehow they got back to the Alpha Quadrant. So I guess they got back through, fixed the plasma leak, and then flew back through. And then they get in touch with good Cisco, who's like, where have you been? And then Kira's like, through the looking glass, Commander. I mean, crossover. We did a crossover. That's the name of this episode.
I'm just like, I feel like that's a reference that she should not know. Maybe she's read Alice in Wonderland.
She's been hanging out with humans for a long time, so...
Maybe, she's like, oh, you haven't read Alice in Wonderland too, you've read it in the original Bajoran.
Right. So our first, and maybe only...
Yeah, as far as anyone knows.
Into the mirror universe, this episode. I will say the title actually makes sense though.
Yeah, no, it does.
And it's also kind of like a little, it's almost like, because it's like a crossover with the original series.
Oh, I didn't think about it that way.
So it's a nice, I don't know, would you
I
call
mean,
that?
it's certainly the closest we could ever get to an actual crossover with the original series. So.
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not like they're going to go back in time to the original series days and put on original series costumes and interact with those guys. I mean, that would be totally ridiculous. So, yeah.
Right, exactly.
This is definitively the ultimate crossover between Deep Space Nine and the original series. So we have no Alt Dax, Bashir, or Morn, or the rest of the crew. So always good to like leave some fun mysteries when you're doing something like this.
I mean, Morn could have been here. Jeez.
It's like alternate Morn is like the emperor of the universe.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, obviously we pay tribute to the great Morn. It's like, the what? Anyway, so is there any fun, like, Memory Alpha trivia or anything about this?
Let's see what we got in this one. Sexy Nana Visitor. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Like, why does being evil, like, the evil version of you always have to be sexy? Like...
Well, because, unless the regular version is sexy, and then the evil one wouldn't be. But...
True. It's like they meet the alternate Bashir, and he's like a monk or something.
The teaser scene with the two Klingons is apparently shot from very extreme angles, which David Livingston says are practically shooting up the actors' noses. And he says he did that to emphasize how different things are in the mirror universe.
Well, I saw that because it was just for that one little part. Because there was all these like really weird like low angles and close-ups and stuff. Yeah. I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
He wanted you to feel how weird it was there for this first appearance of the mirror universe, in the mirror universe.
Right.
Apparently, like, people have been pitching mirror universe scripts since Next Generation, but they just never
it's
liked it.
I was like, how come we never did mirror universe in Next Generation? That would have been fun.
And so finally someone was like, but what if, like, it says that Ira, Stephen Bear, was like, what if, like, original Kirk screwed up and, like, Spock listened to what he said and it messed everything up? And this is, I guess, Michael Piller talking. And so he's like, I was watching Schindler's List, and I was thinking if I were a little older, I could have been in one of those camps in Poland. If Germany had won the war, I would not be here doing what I am. And I guess that, like, sent him down this path of, hey, maybe, So Schindler's List pops in again.
Right. A big influence on this season.
And Robert Hewitt Wolf says that he wrote the fall of the Terran Empire in the script as an analogy for the fall of the Roman Empire, or the Chinese dynasty to the Mongols.
Okay.
But he also, there's this diatribe in here about, like, empires aren't usually brutal unless there's a reason. There's usually external or internal pressures that cause them to be that way. So I just thought, if parallel Earth was that brutal, then there had to be a reason, and maybe that reason was the barbarians, such as the Klingons and Cardassians, at the gate.
Oh, okay. I guess it's nice that he put some thought into it, at least.
True. Originally, Worf was supposed to be in the episode playing basically the character that Garrick plays here. And Garrick was going to be like that other Klingon, Telok, who like gets the most lines of any Klingon in the episode.
Sure.
But I guess they swapped that up.
They couldn't
he was busy filming All Good Things at this time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's most of the interesting stuff that's in here. But like, except that this episode, was super hard to shoot and took a long time because, they had to change up all the sets and do a bunch of costumes and...
That's like almost my number one comment about this episode is why wasn't it a two-parter? Because they put so much work in all these like costumes and sets and all this stuff. It's like it would have just been an easy like extra part. And plus, I would have totally loved to have like a two-parter in the mirror universe.
And there's one thing that I liked in here, which is Odo wears like his outfit as opposed to his normal outfit has like a collar and a belt.
Uh-huh.
And it says that Auberjonois liked that so much that they started using that on his regular uniform.
Oh. Nice.
So,
I never thought about that before, but yeah, I guess Odo's uniform has never had a collar before.
So, going into, I guess, I'm gonna just come out and say it's kind of blasphemous. I don't like the mirror universe. I don't like it as a story concept. the original episode of the original series, Mirror Mirror, the original series is so campy that I can't even blame it for doing like the evil twin.
Sure.
What's practically like a soap opera thing at that point, and they had some fun with it. It was amusing, whatever. I don't like that many original series episodes anyway, but it's really strange because I love seeing them get to play like different attitudes in their characters.
Right.
And I think Nana Visitor does an amazing job, particularly. I think they all do a great job of playing these very different people.
Sure.
But Nana Visitor in particular is just like, she plays this like mercurial, like sexual thing so well.
Yeah. I think they were all having fun with their characters.
Cisco, O'Brien, they're all doing a great job, and they're like just really acting the hell out of it, and I think it shows, and it comes across really good. Garrick really isn't that much different from our Garrick, except that I guess he likes torturing people. Maybe if he was, in a normal situation, he was still a member of the Obsidian Order or whatever, he'd also love torturing people. I don't know. But and we talked about how Odo's not really all that different. But so it's weird for me because I like all of that they do. I like what they did with the sets in the episode. Like, they made it while being largely the same. It feels different. Yeah,
they definitely did some like creative stuff with the sets and all that.
But I just don't like the mirror universe. I mean, part of it is like, we already established that it's like, it's a big ask to be like, yeah, all the same people were born in these very different situations.
Yeah.
But there's also just like, it's not only that the same people are born, it's that there's this mixture of sometimes like their core personalities are also opposite. Like, the original series, especially, like all the characters are just like over the top evil, like at their core, as opposed to the good ones on the original. And then in this one, like Kira is so different from our Kira.
Right.
But then they try to, at the same time, convince you that, like, well, some of them at the core are actually still good, like the ones in our universe. Cisco deep down is not as, like, psychotic as he seems, or, like, deep down O'Brien wants the same things that our O'Brien wants, or whatever. And I'm like, well, it's one or the other. It's like, somehow this universe makes everyone inherently opposite, or it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree in that it really kind of doesn't belong in this, in the world of, or especially like the Deep Space Nine Next Gen era of Star Trek, where it's, the mirror universe is just a plot device to have fun alternate versions of all our characters. But outside of that, doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from there. But, on the other hand, I just do love seeing all these fun alternate versions of all the characters.
Part of me thinks that if they had done a Next Generation episode with, Next Generation being like my favorite, maybe I wouldn't feel as negatively about it as I do, but I don't know.
Well, like, maybe if it was like a Q story where Q just like put them in this situation or something, like, when he did with the Robin Hood thing.
Right.
It would be a little bit easier to swallow. But yeah, it's like, going through, and then just like they all happen to live on Terok Nor.
Yeah, right.
And it's just, it's a little silly.
But there's one thing about the Mirror Universe that and I don't know if it makes it better or worse. It's just like, there's so many different like takes on it, in like the extended stuff especially, but they had to go and put it in Enterprise, and apparently it's in like Discovery and stuff also, the Mirror Universe.
Right.
I believe in Enterprise they established that like first contact happens roughly the same way, except when the Vulcans land, like Zephyr Cochrane shoots the Vulcans instead, and then they take their technology. Good. Every book had like a different take on the Mirror Universe, what it was like. Before this episode aired, there was like Next Generation books, or at least one, like where, the Next Gen crew was in the Mirror Universe and the Terran Empire was still in charge or whatever. And there's the series of books written by William Shatner about like, Kirk and his like return after Generations.
Right.
And
after his unceremonious death falling off a cliff.
And in that version, they deal with the mirror universe for like one of the arcs of those books, and it's like I really loved their explanation, which like in my mind became like the canon explanation until Enterprise like shifted things. But it was like in those books say that the mirror universe was basically created when the Enterprise goes back in time in First Contact and, you know, does all the stuff that they do. And then when they leave, they like erase people's memories so they don't remember what happened. But like Zephram Cochrane's memory, like eraser doesn't work quite right. And so when they start to establish this like brotherhood with these other species, he remembers the Borg and it's like, oh, we have to like get really strong and protect ourselves, and starts them on a very like martial path. And I was like, oh, that's like this very subtle, very small change that creates this other universe. And it explains why these two universes are tied together because of like this time travel thing.
Sure.
So I like that one. Apparently there's one book that posits that like they arrived through the Bajoran wormhole in the mirror universe in this episode because the prophets were specifically trying to like create this connection.
Sure.
For some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a little bit more sense than just like there was a damaged plasma injector.
Yeah,
and it immediately took them to the mirror universe.
So there's stuff about the mirror universe that I find kind of interesting, but just in general, I'm not a fan. So this and potentially other future, if it were to happen, episodes in the mirror universe are always kind of at the bottom of my list.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you're champing at the bit to give a rating. So
yeah, we can move into ratings. We're about there. I'm gonna put this one. There's so much good things that they do in it, but it's going to be below the line for me. The question is just how much below the line it's going to be for me. I probably put it at like a lieutenant junior grade. Okay. Not like full ensign because it has all this good stuff to it, and it probably deserves much better than I'm going to give it, but that's where I'm going to stick it. And let me see. What other ones did I do this year?
You have Melora, Second Sight, and Sanctuary.
Let me think. It's hard to put something else as low as something like Sanctuary.
Right.
I'd probably put it above Melora, I guess.
Okay. Crossover.
Crisscross. Crossfire.
I'm gonna give it I mean, just like all complaints about this episode are valid, but it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's just like my Rumpelstiltskin episode or whatever, but it's like, even though it's totally stupid and makes no sense, I just enjoy the kind of like what if-ness of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a full commander.
Fair, okay.
But looking at my list of commanders, I kind of wonder about my logic in some of these orders. But I guess I was like, why is Cardassians at the bottom of my commanders? I remember liking that episode. But I'm going to put it under Cardassians, so it'll be my bottom commander.
Yeah, that makes sense. I fully acknowledge that I am in the minority in just having this visceral dislike of the mirror universe as a rule, but that's what we're here for. We have different perspectives on things.
Sure. I mean, it's like they do alternate universe stuff all the time, especially in like Next Gen.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's like this particular thing, it's just so like, it almost is like Alice in Wonderland, where it's just like so zany and nonsensical, and you go over there and like Cisco's a Cheshire cat, and like I don't know, like
he kind of is. That's an interesting like you said that. I'm like, that's silly, and then I thought about it. I'm like, well,
or maybe he's the Mad Hatter. Who's the Mad Hatter over there?
I guess Kira has to be like the Queen of Hearts or something.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the only thing that really makes sense. But she's so like zany and like she's much happier than the Queen of Hearts a lot of the time. But I almost feel like she's also the Mad Hatter. I don't know who is the Mad Hatter.
She's doing double duty. But yeah, like I said before, it would be so much easier to swallow if it was like a Q type situation or something.
Yeah, because, when it's Q, it's like, I'm going to make up whatever crap I want to make up.
Right, exactly.
Or even like, he's like, hey, this crazy other universe, I'm going to send you there. Where, like, it just coincidentally, all of you happen to be there. Like, if he's picking out by hand from the infinite possibilities of alternate universes, I believe he would pick the one where they all happen to be there. Right, so, that works. But when it's just like, oh, we randomly ended up in this other universe and just coincidentally, like, everyone is here.
Yep. So I totally acknowledge how weird and problematic the mirror universe is. But also I have to give points to the amazing Odo exploding special effect. Which he looks like a balloon full of pancake batter or something. I don't know how they did that, but it greatly entertained me. So for all those reasons, I will put it in the long list of commanders.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, we each
sure
have a long list of something going on here. Hold on, like what do I have lots of this?
You have lots of lieutenant commanders.
Oh, I have lots of lieutenant commanders. I sure do. Yeah, you have kind of an even number. It looks like, just generally speaking, of lieutenant commanders and commanders. So
I think I have like a flatter distribution this season.
We're both like, we both have a fewer number of like under the line episodes. So
right.
I think we both feel like this has been a pretty good season.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. The season's definitely made huge improvements over last season, which we might talk about in our season
wrap up
in just a few episodes.
Which, yeah, I'm about to say that's before too long, huh?
Yep, I think we just have like 3 more episodes. No, I don't want to see a list of Simpsons episodes.
Are you sure you don't? I think you might. Let's see. 3 more episodes, yep.
All right, so yeah, we'll see how this season wraps up. Anyway, ready to call it there?
Yep.
So yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things, like if I can get that meme in there somehow.
I can give you a link to like the post.
Give me a link to that. I'll put that in. Okay. People will click on it and be like, eh.
That was mildly amusing.
Go watch Star Trek Go watch the first part of Star Trek Generations, and then go watch the episode of Next Gen that has Frasier in it. And then
you'll get it.
Yeah, read that meme. Okay. Anyway, I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Goodbye.
And remember, every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.